Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Byrne. Welcome to Revive TV. This our very first episode. We're excited to launch this year. Today's topic, our very first topic, is going to be the number one thing you must consider when choosing your foods. So, before we dive into that topic for today, let's just first of all talk about what Revive TV is going to be all about. So, what we're trying to do here is discuss the 4 requirements for optimal health. As many of you who have been in our practice will know, we talk about the requirements of health. One is that we need to eat well, to have the right fuel. Second is to move well, so that's exercise and good posture. Third is to think well, so that's dealing with stresses, but also our purpose and our values and moving forward. And the fourth one is having proper brain-body connection, which is basically what we do in our office. We make sure that your nervous system is functioning properly, and make sure your spine is moving beautifully as well. So that's the basis of our reasons for bringing Revive TV. We just want to get more content out to you on each of those topics. Each month we're going to have a sub-theme. So that sub-theme will have something to do along the lines of the live event we'll probably have at the end of each month. So this month, for example, in our Inspired Living workshops, this one is Inspired Eating. So we're going to focus, our theme's going to be around some food stuff this month. I'm not going to give you a sub-theme just yet because it's the answer to today's question, but we'll have sub-themes along the way, and we'll dive deeper into that content so you guys can have things that not only you're going to learn, but then you could do, and then hopefully you're going to live better, more prosperous lives. So the other random thing I'm going to do each week is I'm just going to give you one random cool fact about the human body. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what's the day's topic. It'll just be something that I found and something I think we should share. Our human body is an amazing thing, and there's some things that as I've done this, didn't even realize it could do itself. So I think it's time to stop and just pay respects to it and the incredible things it can do and that we've found it can do. So, without further ado, I'm going to give today's random cool fact, and that is that the human nose can remember up to 50,000 different scents. Now, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm sure it's both at very different times. But it's that's today's random cool fact. So, let's kick off into our first episode, which is going to be on the number one thing you must consider when choosing your foods. I think before we do that, the best thing to do is go, well, what is food for? And I think if you can remember these 3 things of what food is for. One, it's for growth. Secondly, it's for repair. And the third one is for work, energy expenditure. So with that in mind, that's where we're going to take our topic today. So the different foods will aid those different functions of food. The reasons for them will aid them differently. And so knowing the structure of foods and the complicated structure of foods is very important to aiding maybe some health challenges you have, or just being as efficient as you possibly can. The interaction between foods and the function of the body is really, really complex. So the more knowledge you have around these areas, the interaction of the food with function, the greater the choices and the empowerment you're going to have. However, if you're like me when I first started diving into this, that's a very long and sometimes complicated process, and we don't necessarily have the time to do that. You can visit people, you can visit like naturopaths and nutritionists and different types of people who are experts in foods, and I certainly would encourage you to look at that. But if that's another step you need to do. So here, let's look at it in very, very practical terms. And the reason I say that is because there are so many different diets and eating plans out there, and some of them are great, but you can get lost in the web of information and not sure exactly what to do, and sometimes don't do anything to change. So let's think about it. So let's go back to what is food for. Food is for growth, it's for repair, and it's for work. So the number one thing you must consider when choosing your foods is around that topic, and the number one food choice is real foods. and that is this month's sub-theme is on real foods. So what do we mean by real foods? Well, I think there's three things that I've kind of come up with that I think you can consider when looking at, am I eating a real food or not? Now, a real food is a requirement as opposed to something that we could choose to have or maybe tolerate. So when you think about real foods, the number one thing I think of is it has one ingredient. Okay, if you think about a tomato, a cucumber, kale, beef, lamb, fish, eggs, bananas, avocados, all of these things have one ingredient. Yes, they are made up of multiple nutrients that our body needs, but they have one ingredient. They are a real food that our bodies will use and absorb. The second thing is it packaged? You know, when you go and buy it, is it in a package? It's got a barcode on it. You know, like, so if anything has a barcode and it's kind of used by date, it potentially is not a real food. Admittedly, a lot of our vegetables and a lot of our fruits and meats now do come in packaging as well, sadly enough. But I think you'll get my gist. Anything that's kind of required to be packaged to keep fresh for a period of time, more than, I think, and this is my next point, number 3, is, you know, how long does it last for? So I think anything that lasts more than a week is probably not a real food. Yes, we can refrigerate and maybe keep it a little bit longer, but in its natural state, it takes more than a week to kind of start to go off. Then it's probably not a real food. It doesn't mean we can't have those foods. It doesn't mean that we don't like those foods. But anything that's been sitting in your cupboard for over a year and you can open it up and use, that's probably not a real food. And so, yes, you could possibly take it. Yes, your body could probably tolerate it. But is it a requirement to allow your body to grow, repair, and work? And I think the short answer is no. It's just a food that I could potentially tolerate, or one that probably you may not tolerate very obviously, or even over long term you might not notice it straight away, but you might not tolerate it even if it's not a strong reaction. Okay, so they're the three things that I would consider when we're looking at real food. So how do we apply that? So if you're going shopping, what would I do? Well, the first thing I would suggest is looking into organic foods. Now, whether that fits into your realm, your thinking and your budget and other things, that's a topic for another day, and we will certainly dive into that this month. So organics is one. The second one, though, is if you're shopping at your regular supermarket, where do you find most of the real foods? And I think if you most layouts are pretty similar. That most of the real foods are found on the outsides of the supermarket. So your fresh fruit and veg are down one side, then you might have all your cold produce, so where your meats are kept and where your dairy, if we go down that, we'll tackle dairy at another time. Your eggs and all that kind of, most of that stuff's all on the outside of your supermarket. So what's left on the inside? Well, on the inside there are things like, you know, household cleaning products and, you know, hygiene products that we need, and we can dive into the necessity of those as well at a different time. But so there might be those products, but the rest of the food sources that are in there are mostly packaged, and they most have lots of ingredients, and they might be nice, and they might not necessarily be detrimental, but they aren't things that your body requires to grow, repair, and to do work. So that's the things I'd like you to consider when thinking about your foods next time you're in. So, you know, where do I consider organics? Shopping on the outside of the aisle, and then the last one is maybe make 80% of your trolley full of real foods as opposed to the rest. I apologise for the train going in the background there. So, with that in mind, they're the three things: organics, if you can, shopping on the outside, and 80% of your trolley full with real foods. That'll get you a good start to meeting the requirements of good fuel and eating well. So remember, I just mentioned before that we have our Inspired Working workshop at the end of the month, on the 24th of Feb at 7 o'clock in the practice. We'll have that up on Eventbrite soon. You can also ring the practice and we can sign you up in the meantime. But also, what I want to give you today is this. There's a download to give you. I've given you, we've come up with the top 5 organic shops for the northern suburbs of Melbourne. That's done that because that's where we are. But it's there's a great amount of choices. So if you're interested in organics or interested in where's a good place to go and why, download that PDF. We will dive deeper into that topic later in the month, but that's the place to go. So sign up for the event if you want to come and learn a bit more about eating. Download the PDF so you can find out where you can get some better choices for real foods. We really appreciate you watching our first episode. It's probably a little bit longer than most because we had the preamble, but go for it. Get out there, try and get some more real foods into you. Remember, it's a requirement, and I look forward to speaking to you next week on Revive TV.